Hello everyone, this is Zeeebo and welcome to this AFK journey video. So in this AFK journey video, I'm going to run through Zeeebo's Dream Round tier list for the Song of Strife seasonal update for the early to mid game. So before we start talking about the tier list, as you guys can see on screen, I'm going to talk about the benchmark for the early to mid game first, and then I'm going to give my own tier ratings. So for the early to mid game, I'll say early will be obviously the start of the season, all the way to maybe somewhere around AFK stage 500 plus to 600 plus. That will be the mid game stage range by AFK stage. By levels, it should be around 200 plus, 230 to 240. That's where I'm currently at. So that will be the mid game range. So you can say maybe 250 to 260 depending on how you look at it, because from my knowledge there's at least 400 resonance levels in terms of the artifacts itself. So I'm not sure what's the max cap, but I think 200 plus 240 250 will be a good range for the mid game side of things. So for myself, it took me about 2 weeks plus to reach the mid game side. So I'm a spender, so if you are somebody who's free to play or you're a light spender, then it probably takes you 3 weeks, maybe even 1 month to come to the mid stage cycle. So the investments in these units or this unit will last you quite a bit for the Dream Realm side of things. So with the disclaimer for the benchmark for the early to mid game, next let's start talking about the tier ratings itself. So over here I put in the season, so to let those people who are not in the Song of Strife season know that this tier list is specifically for the seasonal Dream Realm bosses, or specifically for the Song of Strife season itself. So we have the meta early to mid units. So these are basically units which are nearly ran in every single teams. You can use them almost in every single team, and they are pretty much the go-to units for max damage, at least for the early to mid game. Then we have the niche units. So niche units are, I'll say, really good tech units that you use in specific bosses, because you need specific skill set of theirs to let you achieve max damage, right? For example, maybe Florabelle in the event of Alpha Bear is really good because her summons buys you more time. So that's one example. So I'm going to put Florabelle over here. And then we have decent units. So decent units are sort of like a downgrade from the meta units, but these units are definitely usable in certain situations, and they are also not bad. Obviously they are not the best units if you want to talk about best damage and stuff, but they are still pretty decent in doing damage in terms of what you want to do for Dream Realm itself. So next we have potential substitutes. I decided to include this category for those of you guys who might not have the meta units, but you might have some of these potential substitute units invested. So these units, right, they are obviously not the units you think of when you think of Dream Realm, but specifically for the seasonal update itself, they are actually usable for Dream Realm. So case in point, I'm going to put in Hewin, right? So Hewin is definitely not a unit when you think about its meta for Dream Realm, because her kit is very defensive by nature, but she's a good unit for every other game mode. So there will be people who have invested in her, and her seasonal skill is decent enough for Dream Realm. So if you don't have the top tier Smokey and Coco, but you have a heavily invested Hewin, she might not be a bad option for the potential substitute portion. Okay, lastly, Walker tier, I don't think I need to explain too much. Basically they are Walker tier units, right? So they're not really good. So I'm just going to put in the Walker tier units over here. Okay, so this is me after I put in all the Walker tier units. I'll explain them by groups why they are there. So first of all, I'll start with the obviously bad units. So we have this one, this one, this one, this one. Okay, so all the way from Chippy to Lumon, right? They are basically units that are not really good, and even after the seasonal buff, they are still not that good, specifically for the Dream Realm purposes. So I think the buffs that they got were not something that they need for this game mode, so you don't see a lot of people running them, even though Lumon does have the Heart of Unity buff. But I think Lumon's kit is just so outshadowed by every other mauler that nobody probably invests in him in terms of Dream Realm. So that's why I won't recommend him to people who are very new to the game and thinking like, oh yeah, you know, maybe Lumon could be a good potential unit, right? But no, Lumon just not really good, so I just put him in the Walker tier. So the next few units, they are assassin units. So we have Sylvina, Barrow, as well as Seth. So the reason why I put them there is because they are assassin units meant for arena. They're not as versatile as Vala in terms of damage output, so that's why they are there. And I don't think they actually fit into any specific roles in terms of the Dream Realm bosses, so that's why I don't recommend people to invest in them if they do commit to Dream Realm, if they do want to do better for the seasonal Dream Realm itself. So next one we have Igor, Celezo, Aldir, Viperion, Arden, Granny, as well as Niru. So these units are by no means bad units. In fact, okay, wait, Celezo is pretty bad, so I'm just gonna put Celezo on top, okay? But for Igor all the way to Danny, these units are units which are really good in probably other game modes or decent in other game modes, but their skill set as well as whatever seasonal abilities they got were just not meant for this game mode itself, so that's why they are there. I don't think I need to explain too much. That is too defensive. Arden's very AoE centric, not the best for bossing. Niru's not for bossing as well, more for survival, pure survival sake. Then Viperion's for AoE, Igor's for more annoyingness, not for bossing, so that's why they are there. Okay, so next let's talk about the potential substitutes. Potential substitutes are basically units where in the event, right, if you have these units heavily invested but you don't have the best unit for the meta side of things, you can try to use them, because them at a really high tier might give you more advantage for the stat side of things, because having more stats means survive longer, means more damage, so you can definitely try them. So Huey, I explained already, she offers really good heal, and the seasonal skill offers a little bit of offensive prowess. Damien is also okay if you have Damien's EX weapon active. The haste that Damien offers for the team at the start of battle is quite useful for doing damage, and Damien offers decent damage output as well as a support unit, so he is good in mage teams where you need a little bit of heal to survive for the wilder side of things. So that is for Damien. Obviously not the best unit, okay? These units in the potential substitute category, they're obviously not the best units. They're just potential substitutes in case you don't have the best units, okay? Third unit in this list, Khafra. So Khafra actually rose up in terms of prominence or viability because of the rise of Wilder's physical damage dealer, which I'll talk about later, because Florbell is a physical damage dealer, which is pretty decent for Dream Realm bosses, by the way. Laika has also become a pretty decent unit for Dream Realm bossing, even though Wilder's side of thing is still really weak for Dream Realm bossing. But if you did invest in Laika, if you did invest in Florabelle, Khafra could be a potential physical debuffer in case you need one. So that is the in case you need him, okay? So that's for Khafra's sake. I think Faye's pretty potential substitute as well. Like this unit offers a lot more heal right now with the Shadow Clone for the seasonal skill, so she will do a decent job to keep your team alive, but nothing more. Like, she's just pretty much a substitute unit. I think Parisa's okay, wait, I think Parisa's pretty decent damage dealer in the long run, so probably goes up here. I think for potential substitute, this is pretty much it. Okay, maybe Entendra. Okay, so Entendra is actually quite a decent unit. Like, I'll put her higher in the decent unit list, but she's not really meant for Dream Realm because her kit has only one ability that's quite relevant for Dream Realm, or maybe two, right? The EX weapon skill, which provides damage reduction for a really weak ally, and then a shielding ability which protects the frontmost ally. But for Entendra's case, she actually can go into the Mauler teams really well when you need additional survival. So I don't know how to rate her. I'll say potential. Like, I think in most cases, if you have like other Maulers heavily invested, you don't really need her. But let's say if your other Maulers are not that heavily invested, you need additional shielding, I think Entendra fits into that role to fill up the fractional bonus while shielding their weakened allies. So that's where she fits in. Yeah, that's potential substitutes. Yeah. Is Brutus supposed... Brutus actually pretty good now. Yeah, I'll explain why later. I guess that's it for the potential substitutes. Okay, so next let's go into the decent units. I'll start with the two units that are already on the list, Laika and Parisa. So Parisa's case, right now, a lot of the early to mid game comps are very mid centric, and Parisa is a unit, if she stays alive for quite long, is able to deliver very good damage. Decent damage, not the best but decent damage. So if let's say you don't have some of the best damage dealer to go with your OD, Parisa could be a good choice there. On top of that, she also offers a buff for one unit, which is very helpful for certain units that rely on their normal attack, OD for example, right? So that's why she's a decent unit for the seasonal Dream Realm. Next one, we have Laika. So Laika is a unit which has always been just around the decent line. Even with the introduction of the seasonal skill, I think she's still quite a decent unit in a sense, because yes, we do get Floor Bell. Yes, Laika's seasonal skill is really good, but from the Wilder side of things, right, I think Wilder's still very magical attack centric. So it's really hard to form a team around the Wilders, and if you're already forming a physical team, chances are you'll be using like the Light Bearer variant, you'll be using the Mauler variant rather than the Wilders variant. So I wouldn't say that she's meta, but if you need a physical debuffer, if you need a unit that buffs your team's attack speed, and need a unit with a decently strong seasonal skill, I think Laika's pretty decent in the early to mid game. So that's why she's there. Another really decent unit in Dream Realm is Ciccia. So I think Ciccia never really changed too much in terms of her usage. In fact, right, I think Ciccia might have fallen out of favor in this new season, because there's only one boss which you will want to use her a lot. Then that is for the Alpha Bear, right? For her summoning ability to buy you a little bit more time. But every other boss is still not very good there. Not to bash her, by the way. I know some people will be hurt from me saying that, but honestly speaking, like every other unit that's niche, that's meta, is better than her. So if you want to use her, I think she's viable, but she's by no means good, right? And a must for any boss. So she's good to have for the Alpha Bear boss, but even for that boss, right, you could get more damage without running her. So that's why I cannot give her the niche category, and obviously she's not meta by any means in this game mode. So that's why she's here. I think Donnell's pretty decent as well. Like, I think if you are somebody who has Donnell invested, chances are you have a really big wallet, and this unit does decent damage, nothing more, right? He does a lot of damage, so that's why he's decent. I think Rowan's a pretty decent support as well. Like, I think Rowan has always been this unit that synergizes really well with Starshot spell. So if you're somebody who still relies on Starshot spell for your Dream Realm teams, this unit is still really good. Combined with the fact that I think in general, Light Bearer is still decently usable in the Dream Realm, I think Rowan is in a nice spot of being the faction closer as well as the healer and battery for the team. The Iron's pretty decent. Iron's rise is partially because of the rise of mage teams, as well as the introduction of Crescent spell artifact, which just does so much damage for bossing. So this unit with the magical defense down, as well as the insta ultimate, could be really helpful in certain situations. So that's why he's decent. So that's why he's here. I think Carolina's also pretty decent. So the thing about Carolina is that this unit, right, it's not really a unit which is meant for Dream Realm. She's more of a AoE centric character. But if you did invest in the Ardent Iron Carolina combo for your resources, and you get her EX weapon up to EX weapon 5 or EX weapon 10, that's where she get her magical defense down, and she could be a decent damage dealer for bosses because of all the debuff that she can apply, and obviously because of the damage output that she could provide over a long period of time. Even though she might not be the best damage dealer, but she will be a good damage dealer there. So that's why she's in a decent category. Brutus is pretty decent. Like, if you need a physical attack buffer, physical damage buffer. Brutus is actually in the same category as Kruger. Okay, so I'm gonna downgrade Kruger from the meta early to mid to decent unit because, right, for the seasonal Dream Realm itself, I think surviving and buffing your team is more important than debuffing. So this is for the early to mid stage because we are still facing the issue that we need to survive for as long as possible. So debuffing, especially for Kruger's case, is not exactly like a super good thing, at least at where we are right now. So in the future, I think once we have more stats, once we have better level equipments in the endless mode, I think the debuffing ability of Kruger will come back. But right now, I think I'll downgrade him from the meta to the decent unit because you can do much better by running Coco and Smokey. So I'm just going to put these two units up there. And obviously, people will be running Reina if you really invested in him in the previous time. So these three units are pretty much like the core for many teams, and I think because they are more heal and buff centric, Kruger's debuff ability is not as good. I think another change that happened was because I think now the artifact actually do more damage based on the buffs that your teams are provided with. So that's where buffing and sustaining is more important than debuffing. So for Kruger's case, this unit drop off from meta to decent, and for Brutus' case, this unit has this seasonal skill which increases your physical damage when he's close to the enemy. And at even low investment state for Brutus, right, this unit can survive for quite long, which will let that debuff kick in longer. So that's why he's in the decent category. I think overall Kruger would still be better for the debuffing compartment, but Brutus definitely rose up from the Walker tier to the decent tier category, even with low investments. Lucius is pretty decent now. Okay, so Lucius is by no means a meta unit, but Lucius at low investment provides what a team would need for sustain. At the same time, his seasonal ability is actually really helpful if he does stick around. So this unit with the seasonal skill definitely amped up your team's damage output, and because there's actually quite a few light barrel units that's pretty decent, so he synergized pretty well with the light barrel tech, which makes him pretty good for Dream Realm purposes if you don't have a good frontliner. If you have him invested, his seasonal skill together with the shielding ability will keep your team healthy, which provides the survival part of things. And then once your whole team lasts long enough, that's where the seasonal skill will provide the offensive side of things. So that's for Lucius' case. I think Scarletta is now, yeah, I don't even think Scarletta is niche. I think Scarletta is decent. Like this unit does decent damage, fix the fractional gap. But yeah, it used to be a niche unit, right, for Skyclops, but she probably dropped off because there's actually a few better combis for Skyclops, and people realize that Marilee is better for Skyclops compared to her, and overall just doing more damage. So she definitely dropped off here. But I think things might change moving forward because true damage, like I think I didn't mention this, but true damage according to the developers will scale up in a late game. So Scarletta being a true damage dealer will definitely see more use moving forward. Hopefully. So one of the reasons why she dropped was because she used to be niche for Skyclops, but now she dropped off because true damage got nerfed slightly. So even if you do get her EX weapon up, she's not hitting as hard as she used to. And for the AoE side, I think the RNG factor doesn't help for the AoE clearance of the minions and stuff. So that's why she's only decent. Definitely still okay for damage for bridging, but not the best unit you would think of. I think that's Shakir. Yeah. Okay, Shakir used to be a niche unit specifically for Snow Stomper. But as of the recent, I think there's actually a better build for Snow Stomper. So I think this unit would still be okay if you're running like a melee rush kind of thing for Dream Realm. And because he's a Mauler, I think he will still be decent based on what he wants to do. But by no means is this unit good, like specifically meta or specifically good in a specific boss. So I just dropped him down to the decent tier. I think Vala's also decent. Yeah. But Vala has a boss where you can definitely run her. That is Necro Dragon. So I think, yeah, I think Vala's more niche than anything. Still okay for Necro Dragon, by the way. This unit still does pretty okay. So I'll put her here. Yeah, that's pretty much it. These units, basically, they are not units which there's a particular boss that they are good at, but overall they will be still usable if you need to fill up certain slots based on what your team lack. And if you have that good investment, like I mentioned earlier, having more stats as well as like higher levels in the EX weapon will probably prove to be better compared to a unit which is lower in terms of stats or EX weapon. So that's why they are decent units that you can use in case you have them invested. Next, let's go to the niche side. So niche units are, I'll say, like, they're units that are close to meta, and these units are used in, I'll say, very specific situations where you need them for specific bosses or to deal with specific boss mechanics. So Florbell seasonal skill make her a lot better for debuffing purposes, and this unit is, I'll say, probably a must for Alpha Bear to extend your survival timing for you to survive for as long as possible for maximum damage. And on top of that, I think this unit is also really good for Snow Stomper for removal of the Ice Prison. So overall, I think Florbell's close to being meta, by the way. But I'll put her in the niche side because I think she is good, but she's not T0 level good. You know, she's not a must-have. Like, you can survive without her. You cannot survive without the meta units, right? If you don't have them, but you can definitely survive without Florbell. Same thing for Vala. I think Vala's still amazing for Necro Dragon. Like, I think in certain accounts where their Vala is more invested than Merrily, I think Vala still does better in terms of damage right now because of the damage type changes, right? So physical attack definitely hits a little bit harder. So that's why Vala is still okay for Necro Dragon. And I think for specific bosses where she can dodge, for example, Alpha's Bear Honey, I think she could be used there as well. So that's why I put her in the niche category. I think Reese is a niche character. Okay, so Reese is actually a really good damage dealer. But I think if you take a look at like the Mauler side of things, right? You guys look at the list down there, right? Or do you guys take a look at the units down there? They are more mage centric. So I think in certain situations where you need the additional physical firepower, for example, the Skyclops boss, right? The ability for the Skyclops boss to summon a minion, where you need the AoE damage potential from Reese, that's where she will really shine, or he will really shine. And for the Mauler tech, this unit will still be useful because of how powerful the Maulers are in general. So it's a good unit to have, much stronger in Skyclops, and very specific situation like Necro Dragon where you need the mobility, but maybe not the most meta units for all the bosses. So this unit is very close to the meta tier, by the way. But right now, I'll just put it in niche cause probably better in Necro Dragon and Skyclops, but pretty meh on every other boss for now. I think niche unit. Okay, Thermasia is definitely still really niche. Despite Thermasia getting the physical attack up buff, there's only, like, I'll say 2 or 3 bosses which you will run Thermasia in. Obviously Necro Dragon, number 1. Number 2 is the low gaze, the physical team. So if you do run a physical attacker team, this unit still does pretty well with the physical defense down, as well as the seasonal skill which amps up physical damage on the enemy itself. So he has the same skill as Brutus, but this unit is a little bit better because for Necro Dragon, you still need Thermasia for max damage. So pretty good there, but pretty meh everywhere else, right? Except for physical teams that you try to build up. So that's why this unit is niche. I think Elsa is pretty niche as well. Okay, so Elsa and Brian, I'm going to put them here. So these units, right, I think by the old standards of things, they are pretty decent. They are decent damage dealers. They do decent damage. But with seasonal skills, with the seasonal updates, with the seasonal artifacts, I think mage single target damage dealers, right, they just become a lot better because of Crescent Spell, as well as OD being a thing. So Brian was a really amazing single damage, a single target damage dealer. With the seasonal skill, this unit amps up in terms of single target damage, so he's quite good when you don't have another magical attacker, right? And you want to have a dual magical attacker setup, you can definitely run Brian. So for Elsa's case, even though her third skill, the one where you need to control the enemy, doesn't work with the bosses, her combo ability plus her ultimate spamming plus her high damage potential, as well as her synergy with some of the artifacts inside the game, makes her a decent unit in mage teams, right? I'm not going to put her meta because obviously when you think of like the top tier units, she won't come to your mind. But for now, I think she's in a good spot where her combo ability plus her ultimate spamming plus her factional attack makes her a really niche unit if you need a second mage damage dealer in your team. So these two units are here for that reason. So they are good secondary carries in case you don't have a secondary carry. And these units are good units outside of Dream Realm. So I believe, especially with Elsa being the banner unit, people will have her invested, and she definitely delivers in terms of damage output if you need a secondary carry. So that's for Elsa and Brian. I think Merrily is pretty niche now. Okay, so Merrily and Corinne got hit quite hard for the Dream Realm side of things. But okay, Merrily's still up there. I think Merrily's still up there. Corinne is probably a little bit more niche, cause now I use Corinne for Necro Dragon. I think Corinne's rising out as well, because his shooting ability is proving to be useful for some of the mid-game bosses, especially in Endless. I mean in the Epic side, so the higher tier bosses. So I'm somewhere in the mid to late stage where I need even more survival. So Corinne's shield might prove to be even more useful moving towards the late game. But for now, I think early to mid game, this unit is only used in Necro Dragon. If you have this unit invested, then he will be a good secondary carry. But obviously, because true damage got nerfed a little bit, right, at least in the early to mid game stage, so he's not going to be the meta level that he used to be. Like, he can be run in every team previously, but right now maybe one or two teams in one or two of the bosses, right? I think you can use him in the Alpha Bear as well because of the 2-tower attack thing. So he's still useful and he can still be used if you do have him invested, but he fits more into that niche side of things, not the meta unit that he used to be. For Merrily's case, I kind of want to put her in the niche side, but Merrily is actually climbing up in usage for the mid-game side of things because her damage output is still really good, right? She's amazing for Necro Dragon, obviously. Her ability to clear up Skycorp's minion is really top tier as well. So that's one thing that I think she will stay relevant for quite a bit. And obviously, even though her damage output got nerfed compared to OD, she's still a good secondary carry unit if you have her invested already, right? If you're not putting your resources into the likes of Reese, into the likes of Brian, into the likes of Elsa, but you have Merrily invested and you have OD invested, these two dual carry will still be a pretty decent meta pick for you. So that is for those of you guys who have already invested in Merrily. She's still a good unit, obviously not the best that can be used in every single team, but still decent enough to stand toe-to-toe with OD in some team setups. Satrana's pretty niche as well. Okay, this unit used to be Toilet Bowl, but two major changes for this unit. Number one, mage teams got a lot better for the early to mid game for Seasonal Dream Realm. Secondly, this unit is the only unit with the Seasonal Dream Realm ability, which buffs magical damage. And look at her tag, she's a Mauler as well. So guess what? She's pretty decent when you group her with OD as well as all the other top tier Maulers in certain boss setups. So that's why she's in the niche unit category. In fact, I do plan to release some footages and showcase for this unit because she has risen up a lot in terms of her overall utility. I won't call her meta yet because there are other units which are must-haves for every other team, or at least I'll say 60 to 70% of the teams. For Trishana's case, probably Croaker. I think Croaker, maybe certain setups where you can have lesser survival, but you need more magical buff. I think she's also okay there. So that's why she's in the niche unit category. Okay, so last 3 unit, we talk about the meta team. So these are basically the niche units. I think Torrents, yeah, Torrent. Okay, I'll just put all the units on top first, then I'll talk about them one by one. So these are the meta units. Okay, let's start with the king of the meta right now, which is Odie. I think I've refeatured this unit so much so that this unit is pretty much the strongest damage dealer right now because of the changes in mechanics, and just this unit benefiting a lot from whatever change drop in the game itself. So he's pretty much a must-have for seasonal Dream Realm if you want max damage, best carry, very good with the current meta of teams of units. So that's why he's over here. Then Coco and Smokey and Reina, they are still really amazing, right, for their supportive capability. In fact, I think Smokey and Coco, they definitely form a very formidable defensive duo which provides offensive buffs if you do have their EX weapon up, because Coco's additional layer of shield, right, is so good that when she uses her ultimate, your team takes less damage, and when the ultimate is down in the downtime, you have Smokey healing you up, and you have Coco's shield to protect your whole team. So these two combined together basically keeps your whole team alive for the max duration of the boss runs for you to jam in as much damage as possible. So for Reina's case, in certain bosses, Reina feels like, I'll say, like a burden because he actually dies off quite easily, but overall Reina's still an amazing Dream Realm unit because this unit's debuff ability is just insane. The ability for him to sort of heal the carry, for example Odie that you send in front, is also really good. So there's still a lot of combo potential for Reina, and he is still one of the top tier support for the Dream Realm, specifically for the Song of Strife season itself. Then for Merrily, I mentioned already, I think this unit is probably not like in her heyday. Like, she's obviously not a top one like Odie, but she's still a very decent damage dealer if you have her invested, and she's still really good for Necro Dragon. You need her for Necro Dragon max damage due to the mechanics, and you need her for the Skyclops summons removal, so she's pretty good there. Overall, a really good unit. Then for our dear Torrent, I think Torrent needs no introduction. You need him for King Croaker, and this unit, on top of his originally debuff ability, his original debuff ability. So this unit used to have a debuff other than the revival as well as the damage thing. He already had a debuff, but his seasonal skill is further debuff. So sometimes you can actually choose not to run Reina but run Torrent and then link it up to your carry to protect your carry while still doing the debuff that Reina wants to do. So that's one thing that Torrent has going for him. And if you don't have Reina invested yet, you can definitely use Torrent in Reina's place if you have your Torrent at a decently high tier, at least Mythic Plus with the EX weapon unlock. So that's for our dear Torrent. Okay, next, the very last unit is a unit which definitely rose up in usage as well as viability for bossing, and that is none other than Cassidy. So I actually wanted to do a unit review for Cassidy for some of the bosses, but the reason why Cassidy rose up in the meta is because these units damage potential with Crescent Spell as well as OD as well as like the mage centric steam is just insane, right? Cassidy herself has a magic defense down. She deals a lot of damage if you do have an EX weapon up, and at the same time this unit has some sort of AoE prowess which makes her decently good against some of the bosses which requires that ability. So overall, she's one of the unit that benefited greatly from the shift in meta from the true damage to the magical damage side of things, because her kit used to be really good for bossing. She's used for battle drill bosses already, so right now it just got amplified by all the buffs and stuff to make her a lot better, and she's starting to appear in a lot of the top tier meta teams for the seasonal Dream Realm, at least in the early to mid game. Okay, so that's it for this tier list. On screen right now is the finalized version for the tier list, and before we end out this video, right, just a few things I would like to point out. So number one, this is a early to mid game Dream Realm tier list for the Song of Strife season. So moving forward into the late game, once I reach the endless mode, that's where the late game for the Dream Realm bosses start. I will probably come up with another tier list by then, so stay tuned for that. If you guys want to see more, you guys want to prepare yourself for the late game for the Song of Strife bosses, do remember to click on the like and the subscribe button. Okay, then next one, this tier list I'll say is a referendum for the units that are good for the game mode. So these units are, I'll say, based off my experience with all the whales, with myself, as well as all the other people that are running Song of Strife competitively. So I'll say it's highly accurate and relevant. But in case you guys don't have some of the top tier niche units or meta units like Cassidy or Satrana, because they're not like highly recommended units for Dream Realm, it's perfectly fine because you have other substitutes for their place. Right, so if you don't have Cassidy, Marilee still really decent in that slot. Right, if you don't have Satrana, I think Torrent's pretty good. Reyna's also really good. Even if you don't have like top tier units, you still can use Iron if you have invested in the Iron Carolina combo, because the role of Satrana is for magic damage boost, right? It's for magic damage increase. So any other unit that can do the role, that can fit into that slot, or just do more magical damage on themselves, for example Brion's or Elsa's case, you can definitely substitute them in. So the idea of this tier list is to let you guys know the relative power level of the unit in the game mode, but it's still up to you to figure out the best team as well as the best units to use for your own best damage Dream Realm boss run. Thank you very much for tuning in. Do remember to like and subscribe to see more, and I'll see you guys again in my next video. Bye guys!